Right. Well, hello. I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Amber Clark, and I'm with the Columbus Airport. I also serve as Georgia Airports Association Secretary and the Chair of the Education and Scholarship Committee. And we'd like to welcome you to the Georgia Airports Association first webinar series. And the purpose of this series is to help educate all Georgia airport managers, employees, whether they're seasoned or new, on all relevant and desired airport topics. Now, I said relevant and desired, so keep that in mind because we are going to be asking for some recommendations on topics, and you can get that to either me or somebody on the board of GAA, or you can tell a friend and we'll get it somehow. But we definitely want to keep it relevant. We want to make sure that we're providing you information on things that you guys are looking for. We do have a few housekeeping items, so we'd like to please remind everybody, please remain on mute throughout this presentation. We don't want to interrupt the speakers while they're speaking. And if you do have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat box. We will be recording those and we will address them at the end of this series. So welcome again to the first session of GAA's webinar series. This is our leveraging GAA's lobbyists for your airport. We understand that Georgia airports all have needs and projects, and currently the state and federal just doesn't have enough funds appropriated for everything that we need in our state for our airports. There's also regulations that may be in place that limit Georgia's airports and limit them to function effectively. And so all these things can be addressed with the help of our lobbyists. And we've had some great successes that we want to go over and let you guys know. And so I'm going to go ahead and introduce our panel. Today we have Andrew Wiersma, I'm sorry. Andrew, if you want to wave and let everybody know who you are. All right, so he's with the Dalton Airport. He's also GAA's Vice President and our Legislative Committee Chair. We also have Hugh Weaver with Pond Company. He is GAA's corporate member and our membership chair. And lastly, we have Edward Lindsay with the Dentons, who is GAA's lobbyist. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Edward, and he can begin his presentation.
Thank you, Amber. To begin with, I want to emphasize how much my team and I are honored to represent the Georgia Airport Association. The work that y'all do around the state for your communities is vital to the health of this state. And we recognize the challenges that you faced and are working very hard at the Capitol and with the Department of Transportation to try to meet the many needs that you have. I thought I would start off by for those of you who don't know me, very quickly tell you a little bit about the team that we have. It's headed up by myself and my partner, Sam Mullins. For those of you who don't know, Sam was the Georgia Attorney General for 2 terms and is now on our Denton's team. My background in terms of the legislatures, I served in the Georgia House for a decade. I was the majority whip for 3 terms in the General Assembly, which is the number 4 ranking position in the Georgia House. After leaving the legislature, I was asked by Denton's to come on board with them, and I now head up our public policy team. Since we've taken over, we recognized and we worked with your board to focus on the budget aspects that you guys are facing. We recognize that compared to other states around the U.S. in particular, other states around us, North Carolina and Florida being the 2 most important ones, that our funding in Georgia was woefully inadequate compared to funding that some of these other states faced. And so we went out last year to first create a study committee within the General Assembly, and we got both the House and the Senate to agree to conduct a study committee that would take a look at both the benefits of the general aviation and as well as the commercial airports in our state and the funding needs that they have. A series of hearings was held last fall, which included legislators and also the Georgia Chamber and other entities, in which we outlined the needs of our airports in our state compared to the limited funding that we've been under for so many years, and as well as the benefits. And I think that it had an enormous impact on the legislators who did participate. At the end of that study committee, a report was rendered, and if anyone wishes to see that report who doesn't have it, Amber, let me know, and I'll be happy to get a link so folks can read both the report and the recommendations of the committee. The recommendations of the committee, first and foremost, was that we need to start moving toward parable funding with states like Florida and North Carolina. And prior to last year, for instance, North Carolina was somewhere in excess of $100 million. By contrast, the funding in Georgia, direct funding in Georgia, was around $16 million. And so, that was obvious an enormous gap. They also recommended other things to sort of move us in the right direction. Expand, for instance, the projects that would be eligible for state funding, which would include some profit-making enterprises that your airports do conduct, with the idea that as a result of funding some profit-making ventures that would help you guys with your increased funding. We also got them to recognize the need for greater flexibility for GDOT funding, to give them some flexibility. There's also a need down the road that we ought to take a look at, that they recognize when it comes to constitutional amendment, which would permit general obligation bonds to be issued that would then be turned around and provide grants for you guys when it comes to y'all's funding. These were several of the recommendations that came out of the committee. Some of these will take time for us to put in place. The most important one, obviously, is the funding. Last year, we did get an increase in funding of approximately $9 million over and above what had been previously allocated. The General Assembly recognized that this was, as put by both the chair of the Senate Appropriations Committee and the House Appropriations Committee, as a down payment toward where we need to get, but it is a step in the right direction. I believe it's basically the first major funding jump that we've seen in a while. Took us from somewhere around $16 or $17 million in the previous year to around $26 million. So that's a step in the right direction that we were very appreciative of. However, it is simply a down payment, and we do have a long way to go to get to the funding levels that we were able to demonstrate to the study committee. And so that pressure needs to continue. I might also add that given the inflation rate, that some of these gains that we've had are going to be eaten up by inflation. So that's going to add to the urgency of what we need to be doing. As we now turn toward next year, we know some of the things that you guys are most concerned about already, such as continuing the push for greater funding. We recognize that fact. But there are other things that you guys will certainly need to be considering. And what I have recommended to your board, and in particular to Andrew, who heads up your legislative committee, is that you guys start thinking about now what you guys want us to be focusing on in the General Assembly, because a great deal of what we do and get accomplished takes place before the General Assembly convenes in the second Monday in January of next year. We'll be reaching out to key members of the House and the Senate, the Lieutenant Governor's office, the Speaker's office, the chairs of the House and Senate Transportation Committees, and obviously the chairs of the House and Senate Appropriation Committees. And we're going to be needing to sit down and start talking to them this fall. So time is of the essence. And what I have asked and recommended rather to you guys is that let's have that comprehensive agenda in place by y'all's conference in October, so that we will have our marching orders for us to move forward on issues, not just in regards to the funding, but to other things some things that you guys should be considering. It's up to you guys to tell us what you guys want us to focus on, but these certainly would include not only the funding issues that I've talked about, but also the constitutional amendment that I also discussed. There's also zoning protections that we're beginning to take a look at the recommendation of your legislative committee, and you guys can then decide if that needs to be an issue. There'll probably also be things, for want of a better term, that we need to play on defense, in that we're going to be needing to take a hard look at any attempts. For instance, there was a movement at one point that would have created an additional bureaucratic oversight over our airports, both commercial and general aviation. And, and the benefit of that is rather limited compared to a lot more bureaucracy. Which now leads me to sort of get to one of the most important things I wanted to talk to y'all about, which is while we have a strong team at the General Assembly, not just me and Sam, but other members of my team, the strongest team that we can utilize to advance your initiatives are you guys. And it is extremely important that you guys get in direct contact with your legislators, with your state senators, and with your representatives in your area. Bring them into your airports. Also bring in, as well as that, if there's an authority that's over you guys, have them come in too, and have your senator and legislator and senators and legislators, House members, hear your needs and hear what you guys are concerned about. Get to know you. Become a resource to them. I can tell you, when I served in the legislature, having certain members from my community who I viewed as a resource was vitally important when I went back and sort of needed some help. And so they need to get to know you, get to understand your airport's needs, as well as get to know you guys as a resource to them anytime that an aviation issue should come up. To that end, and I think Andrew is going to talk to you about this a little bit more down the road of this webinar, is what I've recommended to y'all and will assist you with is having these folks come in August and September. View that as your window for getting folks in to visit with you. And many of you, excuse me, may not know your senators and representatives as well as I do. And we want to be that resource to help you set up these meetings. That's part of our job to you guys, is to help facilitate these sort of meetings. And Andrew and Hugh and others will sort of talk to you about how to do that. But, get a hold of us, say, hey, look, we want to hold this meeting. We want to hold a meeting, perhaps, give us some possible dates. Edward, Sam, can you help us get it set up? We know these legislators and we're happy to be the people to help facilitate those if you do not already know them. We want to create that relationship that I think will be so important. And so we want to work with you on that. And with that, Andrew, Hugh, do we have any questions that y'all want me to answer, or how should I hand it off from here?
I think we're going to hold the questions to the end, and we'll pass it off to Hugh for now.
Thanks, Amber. Thanks, Ed. I'm going to be sharing with you a little bit. The title of the topic is Benefits of Georgia Airports Association Membership, but I think the key part to underline is membership and involvement. It's because it's not just submitting a fee. It's about many hands make light work. So I was going to share with you the 6 key benefits of involvement and membership with the Georgia Airports Association. First is professionalism. Your affiliation with Georgia Airports Association sends a message that you're serious about your profession and you're willing to invest yourself in the fellowship of peers looking to grow themselves and their airports. As a member, you promote and increase the impact economically that Georgia airports have on our communities in the state. GAA speaks for all of the airports in the state to get the maximum amount of financial support it can for every airport, regardless of size or type. Second is education. Georgia Airports Association runs professional development events such as workshops and webinars designed to raise awareness of important issues facing our industry. Our annual conference and expo provides education sessions tailored to both general aviation and commercial service airports. And just when we think we have mastery in the industry, changes arrive and demands more learning. Next are perks. You heard earlier from our lobby representative, Ed Lindsay. One of the most important functions of this organization is that Georgia Airports Association monitors legislation that affects our industry, leveraging the efforts of our governmental affairs liaison, Denton's US LLP. Denton's is a resource not just for the organization, but for all of our members to fight for individual airport legislative needs that affect their communities. Georgia Airports Association brings Denton's within reach, making the lobbyists more accessible to each of you. Members can use them to schedule a meeting with their legislator or call a member of the legislative committee to ask a question or present a legislative need. The Georgia Airports Association keeps all our members apprised of recent or active changes in legislation that may affect our industry. Regular legislative updates are distributed to members as necessary and appropriate. Next is networking. Social media has injected steroids into the support of professional networking, but the real power of Georgia Airports Association lies in the opportunities it affords for networking. By attending local events sponsored by the Georgia Airports Association, members meet great people in our state who we might not have met otherwise. Next is profile. Membership in the Georgia Airports Association provides you with an avenue to give something back to the profession, perhaps by presenting at one of its events or authoring a leadership thought paper. Further, it provides a platform to support Georgia's statewide aviation system plan and as a valuable and vocal statewide voice for Georgia's small airports. Supporting the state's aviation program is significant to our small airports, as this program provides predominantly the only source of funding for most of these airports across the state. And last but certainly not least is recognition. The association also sponsors industry awards. These awards are so important because they shine a light on outstanding work that should be showcased by members and by legislators and others in our state that otherwise may remain undiscovered. So again, I can't emphasize that it's not only membership, but engagement with the Georgia Airports Association. And if you're not already involved, give me a call and we'll find how we can get you integrated with our great organization. With that, I'm going to pass it on to Andrew for the next session.
Thanks, Hugh. Appreciate it. Again, I'm Andrew Wiersma. This year, I am serving in the capacity of Vice President as well as Chair of the Legislative Committee. And a few weeks ago, got the news that our President, Tony O'Brien, has taken a job in Florida. So he has moved on in the middle of the year, which is kind of unusual. And he asked me to take over the presidency 3 months early. Normally that transition occurs at the annual conference in October. So this year I'm taking over just a little bit early and we'll be over the conference this year. I'm going to share my screen with you here. So the annual conference this year is going to be at the DeSoto in Savannah, October 12th through the 14th. We hope you guys can join us and be there. It's going to be another great conference this year. We've got a great lineup. A lot of your board members are working hard to put this together, and I think it's going to be a great conference. So hope to see you guys there. I'm excited about the year. I've been excited about this year. We've made a lot of progress legislatively. On the legislative team, I've really enjoyed working with these folks. Edward, Sam, his team, they're great guys, and they have a lot of connections at the Capitol that we really need to take advantage of. The progress that we've made, Edward talked about it. We've got an $18.5 million increase for the amended fiscal year 2022, and then another increase for FY23 of $12 million. So that's very encouraging, obviously, to get those increases. As he told you, we're aiming for a much higher goal of what came out of the Airport Study Committee was $80 to $100 million. Annual budget is what we'd really like to aim for. And obviously this is a down payment, as Edward said. It's a small increase, and it comes with a lot of struggles. Obviously inflation is increasing. That's lowering our buying power of these dollars that we're getting. We're getting a lot of infusion of funds through the federal infrastructure bill. That helps a lot as well. But there again, there's a lot of economic struggles right now that are affecting you and your airport projects. We're going to have a lot of airports that are starting projects this year based on the new funding. Consultants are stretched very thin right now. Contractors are stretched very thin. It's hard to get work scheduled. Getting supplies is an issue. So we've got a lot of unique struggles in the future, in the next couple of years, to deal with while we start receiving these federal infrastructure monies and hopefully more increases to the state budget. So we want to work with you guys on that. We want to be a resource to help you through the struggles that we're going to face in spending this money that we're getting allocated. For the following year, Edward mentioned we need to get our legislative agenda together by the conference time. It's very important that we have this built so that Denton's knows what they need to bring to the Capitol. And that comes from you guys. The board members, we can come up with things that affect our airports and try to come up with good ideas working with GDOT, but ultimately we want to hear from our members. And that's what I want to focus on for the rest of this year and into next year is engagement with the membership and hearing from you guys on what issues you're facing at your individual airports, what legislative problems you're having, funding problems, and engaging with you on that level. A big part of that engagement is our website. We've got a new website, switched to a new company last year. And so I want to go over some of the resources that we have on our website. If you go to our main page, georgiaairports.org, and go to the membership tab, you come down here to engage with GAA. And we've built a handful of forms here that are going to be great resources for you guys to interact with us. First of all, the legislative question need form. This is going to be one of the main ways that you can interact with us on legislative issues. This is also what we want you to use if you're wanting to schedule a meeting with your legislator. So let's click on this. All these forms are very basic. All you need to do is put in your contact info, your airport info, and then click on, I've got a question or task for my lobbyist, or for the legislative committee, or just anything else you want to send to us. This is where you need to go to say, I want to schedule a meeting with my legislator. A lot of you may already know your local legislator. You may have a working relationship with them. But a lot of us in the state have not had those relationships built. Edward and Sam, I've been to the Capitol with these guys. They know the folks that they can put in touch with you. They're rubbing shoulders, they're slapping backs, they're having lunch with these guys, and they are the resource to put you in touch. So we want to make August be kind of the month for meeting with your legislator. These guys are not real busy in August. It's kind of middle of the year between sessions, so it's a great time to set this up. So if you'll just come in here, fill this form out, say, I want to set up a meeting. Denton's is going to set this up so that your legislator can either come visit you at your airport, you can give them a tour, you can show them, you know, the actual struggles you're having on the ground at the airport. And you would be surprised, these guys, these legislators, that's what they want. They want to hear from you. They want to know how they can help their constituents. And so if you can show them and tell them and shake their hand, it means the world. And they will take that to the Capitol for you. So this form is just a simple way that you can interact with us and get that information to us. It's very important as the legislative team that we know what our members need at an individual airport level. Next, we've got submitting an airport project. This is a great way to possibly get additional funding for your airport. Obviously, you're submitting your project list to the 5-year CIP, to GDOT and the FAA. But if you submit your projects to GAA as well, we can actually bring these projects to the Capitol and give them to Denton's, and we'll advocate on your behalf. A big reason that we got the increases that we got for the last 2 years is because we actually brought a list of projects to these legislators and said, look, we've got an urgent project that needs funding at an airport in your district, and could actually show them on paper the needs that we had. And we had a list of $22 million worth of projects that needed funding, and ended up getting an $18.5 million increase, which is huge. And that's exactly what these legislators want to see. They don't want, they've got all kinds of people walking up and just sticking out their hand. And, you know, we could walk in and say, hey, I need $100 million for airports in Georgia. But that doesn't really mean a whole lot. If you can walk in and say, I've got a list, and it's actually an airport in your district that needs $2 million for a new ramp because they have airplanes falling into potholes. It makes a huge difference to these guys, and they'll go to bat for you. And sometimes they'll even name funds specifically for an airport for that project to get done. So submit these projects to us so that we as a membership have this on hand that we can share with your legislators, and we'll help get this in front of the guys that need to see it at the Capitol. We also work with GDOT on this. So if you submit a project to us, we're also working with GDOT to make sure that, you know, we're not taking a project to the legislature that really doesn't need to be funded or isn't eligible for that kind of funding. But it's really important. Very simple form, just a lot easier even than filling out your CIP in Black Cat. Next, we've got the Board of Directors Committee Interest Form. So your board is doing a lot of great work, but as Hugh said, many hands make light work. So we can always use more. Everybody on the board, you know, is volunteers. We're all very busy with our day jobs, running our airports, but we can each carve out a little bit of time to put towards GAA. So the more folks we have on the board, the better off we are. Fill this out if you're interested in getting involved. Maybe it's yourself, maybe you know someone who you think would be a great fit to be on the board. Put them in here, suggest it to us. We'll kindly reach out and nudge them to get involved. But we definitely want to hear your interest if you have some. Also, you don't have to be on the board to serve on a committee. You can fill this out if you're interested in serving on one of the committees. Conference committee, if you like planning. As a member of GAA, you can get involved and work on these committees without being a board member. Contact us form, obviously, any general questions that you have, get them to us. All these forms, email us directly that they've been filled out, so they're checked frequently. We want to hear from you, questions, comments, concerns, any ideas you may have for, hey, I'd like to see this topic discussed on at the next annual conference, or I'd like to see sessions be done a little differently at the annual conference. Anything that you can input that will help us help you is what we want to hear. So that's just a very generic form. You can really type anything you want to in the message area that you want to get to us. Obviously, also on our main page here, we've got Board of Directors. If you want to reach out directly to a board member, you can see them in here. And let's see. Lastly, our educational webinar feedback form. That's for this this session, but also future sessions. We're very excited about this educational web series. Amber has done a great job. This is her brainchild putting this together, and we're looking forward to doing this in the coming months this year, but also next year. I think this is going to be a great resource for our members. But please fill out this feedback. Give us feedback on this session. Let us know what topics you'd like to see in future sessions. These sessions are going to be just short, an hour or less, but we want to discuss topics that are going to help you. How-tos, things that you want to know how to do. We'll get professional people on here that can tell you and show you exactly how to do it. So we're going to get better sessions if you tell us what you want to see. So fill that out. Lastly, Facebook. Hopefully you follow us on Facebook, our Facebook page, Georgia Airports Association. We have recently also created a Facebook group, which we encourage you to join. So the group is just like any other Facebook group. It's very informal. Join the group. Once you get in the group, you can post, you can create questions, answer questions, just interact with your fellow members. I think this is going to be a great resource. We just have to get the more folks we get in the group, the better, as far as responses go. So, you know, you can put job postings in there, questions, things you're having problems with at your airport, anything. For example, we had recently, one of our board members was looking for some temporary linemen for their airport to help out during a event that they were having, a week-long event. I think it was for the Masters. Posted in the Facebook group, hey, does any of your line guys want to come and work the Masters at the airport for a week? That type of thing, anything and everything. Interaction is going to be a fantastic way to just get the largest benefit out of your membership at GAA. We really appreciate you guys being members of GAA, supporting the group, and we look forward to the coming year. We hope you'll all be at the annual conference in October, and I look forward to taking care of you as the president in the coming year. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Amber and see if we've got any questions.
Thank you, Andrew. That was great. We actually do have a few questions, and you still have time to type questions in the chat box if you have some. So the first question is, how will temporary suspension of state motor fuel tax affect revenue sources for the aviation program? I believe that's for you, Edward.
We're talking with the GDOT about whether or not, and to the extent that it will have any impact. The tax that was suspended dealt with automobile revenue. I can't give you an exact figure in terms of whether or not it will have an impact, but given the fact that automobile gas fuel is required to be spent on highways, I don't see that as having an enormous impact. But Robert and the rest of you, I'll get back to you on that, and Andrew can then disseminate it to the larger group. And Steve is here with us right now.
I can help you on that, Edward. Yeah. It will not impact us at all because ours, our funding is taken directly from the general fund, and we're not allowed to touch motor fuel tax at all. So maybe that's the plus of this whole thing, is that we don't get the benefit of motor fuel tax, but we also don't take the pain if it's cut off like it just was.
Yeah, and motor fuel tax, by I think it's even by the Constitution, has to be spent directly on highways.
That's correct.
And that kind of transportation.
Thank you. Next question, maybe for Andrew. What should we do if our cities or counties will not allow us to discuss or speak to our legislatures?
Wait a minute, is this given the fact that it's an election year?
No, we've had some feedback that some airports actually, I guess their cities or counties are lobbying for money for other projects. And so they don't want them actually muddying the waters, I would say, or they may just have a policy that they don't allow them to do that. So in those cases, what can they do to still get that information and build that relationship?
I think it's still important for you to get a relationship, is to get, without making perhaps a specific ask, if there is that kind of limitation that's being placed on you by your local government, you can still get the legislator out there, show them what's going on at your airport, discuss with them the economic impact that your airport has on the community, and tell them that you're prepared to be a resource to them should any questions come up. So even if your local governments are putting, for want of a better term, a muzzle on what you can specifically lobby for, you can still become a resource to them. And I would think that your local government would like to have the legislators come out to visit, because the local folk, because you guys are getting state funding, and you guys and your particular local government is going to want to see you guys get some of that money that's being appropriated. So even if it's not a specific ask, when it comes to additional money, I think it's still something that's very important for you to do.
I think that's a huge benefit of why we have Dentons as well. If you cannot meet with your legislator, Dentons is kind of the buffer. So still reach out to us as a member, reach out to us through the forum and tell us, that's the case. I can't meet with my legislator for whatever reason. My local government says I can't be seen with them. Maybe it's just a local thing that they decided they don't want that. But that's why we have a lobbyist. There are large airports that have their own lobbyists. So it's really an awesome resource to be able to say, as a member of Georgia Airports Association, I have a lobbyist on my side. And you can reach out and just let Edward know, I can't meet with them, but these are the issues I'm having. And I'd like someone to meet with my legislator and let them know, where I stand and what I need.
Yeah, and sort of build on that. I'd love for I don't know who asked that question, but I would love for you guys to reach back out to me, because I would love to hear what kind of restrictions you're being placed under, and then you and I can work directly to figure out how we can get around it and still keep you within the good graces of your local government. And I'm happy to sort of chat with you about that. So please feel free to reach out to us.
Perfect. I got another question for Ed. So since we're within an election year and we do anticipate maybe some turnover, at what point would you recommend reaching out to our legislators?
I still recommend that you reach out to your legislators, particularly the ones that are up for re-election in August and September. The fact of the matter is about 90% of them plus will get re-elected. That's just the nature of the beast. So but I would also, if you're in an area that you think there are some tight races, get a hold of me and our team, and let's sort of talk about whether it would be a good idea to invite both the legislator and the challenger at different times to come out and meet with you. Also, several of you guys are in areas in which your incumbent is not running for re-election. And in that case, it may very well be better for you to invite that legislator in November or December rather than before the election. And we can work with you with that as well. Because, depending on the particular needs in your area or the particular concern in your area. So, please contact us and we'll walk through it with you. Go, okay, yes, you don't know who's going to win this election. Maybe it's better to simply wait until November or December. Or Edward, my incumbent has got a opponent. Should I wait or should I get a hold of him now? We're pretty savvy in figuring out who may really be in a tight race and who's not. And there may be a few, it'll be very few, that will say, nah, hold off, let's see who actually wins, whether or not this challenger can take out an incumbent. But in most cases, we're going to tell you, hey, by the way, yeah, he or she has a challenger, but it's really not going to be a very tight race. Go ahead and meet with them. That sort of thing. So that's the sort of resource that we can provide you guys with in terms of whether or not to do it immediately, whether or not to wait till after the election.
One more note that I forgot to mention, we do also have a page on our website that is a legislative updates page. And at the top of that page, you'll see here, write your legislator. We've got a template here that you can use for writing your legislator. The legislative committee put that together. It was also reviewed by Dentons, so feel free to use that and just change the wording to your local legislator. If you don't know who your senator or representative is, click here. You can put it in and find out exactly who your legislator is.
And Andrew, if I could add one other thing that I think is important, particularly given Tara's question a moment ago. We don't endorse, meaning GAA. We don't we don't pick and we don't come out in favor of one side or the other. We're prepared to work with whoever gets elected, whether they be Republican or Democrat. That being said, we can be rather savvy in telling you who we think is likely to win in your area, and help you out there. But you know, I cannot emphasize enough that we never want to be in a position where we're actually viewed by one party or the other as being partisan, because so many of y'all's needs are bipartisan. You know, we could not have gotten through the legislature some of the gains that we've had over the last couple of years without bipartisan support. And so we work very hard to be bipartisan. I focus, for instance, and my team, for instance, on Sam and I, who come from a background of a particular party, even though we have strong relationships with the other party. But we have throughout our team, we have a very strong bipartisan team. And we can talk to folks on either side of the political aisle. And so I just want to make that very clear. We're not looking for you to endorse anybody. We simply want you guys to be a resource to the folks that will be serving and representing you in the General Assembly.
Okay, another question. How was the study committee formed, and how does that process work?
Study committee was formed by a joint resolution of the House and the Senate. We went to key legislators in 2011 General Assembly session, and we specifically asked for that to be put in place. In particular, we went to the House and Senate chairs of transportation. That would be Rick Jaspers in the House and Frank Ginn in the Senate. And then specifically asked that they create the study committee. So it was for want of a better term, a creature of the General Assembly that we were responsible for setting up. And quite frankly, we were also responsible for recommending who should be on that committee.
I think that's all the questions that we have. If anybody else has any questions, last couple minutes to type it in the chat box. Otherwise, I think we've pretty much wrapped it up. All right, well, I don't see any more questions. Oh, wait, hold on. With the state budget surplus, what's the possibility of some of those dollars being allocated to aviation programs?
I think that we have a reasonable shot. I think it's Billy who asked that question. It was the surplus that we saw this year that helped lead to the General Assembly putting additional money in the supplemental budget for aviation, and also putting the additional money in the budget for the fiscal year 23. So Billy, you know, we're going to go after every dime that's included within the surplus, and we have as good a shot as anybody else. I mean, except for education. I'll be honest, education always comes to the front of the line, but that's going to be part of the task that we have between now and January, is to not just go in and say, hey, we need more money, but to be able to sort of show the legislators what specifically we could do with the additional money, and how that will positively impact the economic development of our state. So that's part of the challenge that we have. And thank you very much for that question, Billy, because that's one thing that we're going to be asking you guys to do is to help show what exactly we can do with the additional money.
Good question. Any other questions? Okay. Well, I'd like to thank everybody for coming today to our first session. I think it went really well. I hope you enjoyed it and got something out of this program. We are currently working on firming up the date and time of next month, so stay tuned. You'll see that. We'll go and put that out in an email to everybody. But again, we just want to thank everybody and welcome you for coming to our first session.